What if the reason you're afraid of dying is because it's happened to you before? Not once, not twice, but over and over again. There's a quiet theory that death isn't the end. It's a reset. A point where everything gets erased, except the part of you that doesn't live in your brain. The part that carries things it was never taught. Emotions that don't match your memories. Skills that arrive too easily. Wounds that never had a beginning. Maybe you've walked through this life with a feeling you couldn't place, that nothing quite fits, that you've said goodbye to people before ever meeting them. That fear shows up even when nothing dangerous is happening. It might not be your imagination. It might just be what's left of all the lives you've lived and forgotten. So, what does it mean to die if nothing really ends? In most spiritual systems, the soul isn't bound to a single body or life. It moves, shifts, and continues, whether we're aware of it or not. Some call it reincarnation. Others talk about energy persistence or quantum consciousness. The core idea is the same. The body expires, but the core self doesn't vanish. It simply starts again, often with no memory of the path before. The idea of a memory wipe comes in when you ask, why don't we remember anything clearly? If we've truly died before, where are the memories? Why don't they survive? According to regression researchers and metaphysical scholars, the forgetting is part of the system. It allows the experience to feel real, urgent, and fresh. But sometimes things leak through. Dreams, unexplained fears, that strange sinking recognition you can't shake. These are traces or fragments that didn't get wiped clean. And if you look closely, they're everywhere. Let's look at each one. 1. You don't fear death. You fear remembering it. There's a difference between fearing the unknown and fearing something your body already knows. Most people describe their fear of death in vague terms: darkness, pain, losing control. But if you sit quietly and trace it, what often surfaces is something else. A sensation of falling, suffocating, or being pulled away from something you love. These fears don't always make sense, especially if you haven't experienced trauma in this life. And yet, they come with clarity, as if they were etched into your nerves. It's possible the fear isn't about dying for the first time. It's about your nervous system remembering what dying felt like before. The pain, the helplessness, the unfinished endings. That's why some people feel a wave of terror while doing something simple. Driving over a bridge, standing near deep water, hearing a certain sound. Their minds forget, but their cells, maybe, still carry the echo. 2. Déjà vu isn't glitch. It's residue from a life you already lived. Déjà vu has been explained away as a hiccup in the brain, a moment when short-term memory trips over itself. But that doesn't explain the emotional weight it sometimes carries. The moments when you walk into a place and feel like it knows you, when a face seems familiar even though you've never seen it, when a situation unfolds exactly as you expect, down to the smallest detail. If you've lived before, and the memory of it was partially wiped, then déjà vu might not be a malfunction. It could be residue, a trace that escaped deletion. Some researchers have even pointed out that people under hypnosis have identified historical events, geographic details, or family structures that they couldn't have known, but matched archived records later. You aren't repeating your life exactly, but you might be stepping over footprints that look a lot like your own. 3. Your soul doesn't end, it resets. The concept of death as a full stop has always left unanswered questions. Why do some children speak languages they were never taught? Why do some people feel inexplicably connected to a time or place they've never been? If the soul works more like stored data than a candle flame, then death isn't a disappearance. It's a system reboot. When a life ends, the information isn't discarded. It's compacted, folded, filed, and then, under the right conditions, opened again in a new form. You might think of it as starting over, but you're not starting from nothing. You're carrying compressed files of meaning, trauma, love, longing, all loaded into your next body, like a quiet background process. That's why certain things feel familiar before you even understand why. 4. Near-death experiences aren't mystical. They're glimpses of the truth. Thousands of people across cultures report eerily similar details when they come close to dying. a feeling of floating, seeing their body from outside, moving through tunnels, entering spaces that feel beyond language, meeting beings they describe as familiar, and then being told or pulled back, often reluctantly. Skeptics argue that these are just chemical effects in a dying brain, but they don't explain how people report events that happened in rooms they weren't in or conversations they couldn't have heard. What if near-death experiences are not illusions, but windows? A moment when the wall between this version of reality and the deeper one thins enough for the truth to show. But those moments don't last. Like a screen that flickers and goes dark, the door closes again. Not because you weren't ready, but because remembering too much might break the illusion this life needs to feel real. 5. That dream you had about dying felt real, because it was. Some dreams don't behave like dreams. They arrive with precision. They feel heavier. You wake up disoriented, carrying emotions that stay with you for hours or days. Sometimes, people dream of their own death in ways that feel too grounded to dismiss. According to several case studies in dream research, some of these dreams match historical deaths or contain information the dreamer should have no way of knowing. It's possible that during sleep, especially in deep states, barriers loosen and stored memory slips through. You don't need to believe in reincarnation to feel the weight of a dream like that. But if you've ever had one and couldn't explain how it left you grieving for something you've never lived, there's a chance it wasn't a dream at all. 6. You're drawn to certain people because you've lost them before. Some connections defy logic. You meet someone new and feel like you've known them for years. There's no shared history, but there's a quiet recognition, an ease or intensity that doesn't match the timeline. These bonds often feel urgent, comforting, or even chaotic, as if something unfinished is trying to play itself out. In systems that believe in soul memory, this is explained by the idea that people travel through lifetimes together, playing different roles. A parent in one life becomes a friend in the next. A stranger you pass once on a street was someone you once wept over. You don't remember them in detail, but the emotional imprint lingers. That's why some relationships feel impossible to walk away from. Not because they're meant to last in this life, but because something in you remembers how it ended last time and doesn't want it to break the same way again. 7. Phobias. Without cause are death echoes. Some fears make sense. They come from trauma or lived experience, but others arrive without origin. A fear of deep water in someone who's never been near the sea. A terror of fire in a person who's never seen one out of control. These fears live in the body, not the story. Past life researchers have noted strong connections between unexplained phobias and previous death experiences recalled under hypnosis. One patient terrified of swords had no memory of why until they uncovered a violent death involving one in a recalled lifetime. When the memory surfaced, the phobia faded. Your mind might not be able to access the story, but the imprint of pain stays until it's acknowledged, not as a punishment, but as something seeking resolution. 8. Karma isn't punishment, it's memory management. People often think of karma as moral accounting. Do something bad, get something bad in return. But that's a crude interpretation. In deeper spiritual systems, karma is more like cause and effect across time, not a punishment but a way of balancing memory and experience. Your soul, in this view, is writing a long script, correcting, refining, absorbing lessons, confronting themes it left unfinished. If you hurt someone in one life, you may find yourself in their position in the next, not because you're being punished, but because the only way to understand fully is to become the other. Karma is the weight your soul carries until it understands itself, not to judge you, but to complete what was never finished. 9. You're not learning life. You're mastering exit. It's easy to think the point of life is to get better at being alive, but what if the goal isn't to perfect this experience, but to transcend it? Some traditions describe the cycles of life and death not as progress, but as repetition. You loop through existence, learning the same lessons in different bodies, until you're no longer attached to them, until you no longer react, until you no longer forget. When you reach that point, you don't die in the usual way. You step out of the loop, you stop returning, not because you've won anything, but because you no longer need the memory wipe. You've integrated everything that once needed to be split across lifetimes. 10. The fear of death is installed, so you don't unlock too soon. Most people's lives are built around avoiding death. We fear it. We ignore it. We try to outrun it. But the fear itself might be part of the design, a built-in block that keeps us from seeing through the script too early. Because if you didn't fear death, you'd start asking the wrong questions. You might look too closely at the edges of reality. You might stop being emotionally attached to the things that keep you here. Pain, success, relationships, failure. You'd recognize it all as transient, and that awareness might destabilize the experience. The fear isn't meant to harm you. It's meant to keep the simulation stable. But once you notice it for what it is, something changes. Not the fear itself, but the way you relate to it. If you have made it this far, comment down below with the word 100% to confirm that you have received the knowledge from this video. For more interesting topics, make sure you watch the recommended video that you see on the screen right now. Thanks for watching.